On a cold January day in Minneapolis, when the city was blanketed in snow and the air was sharp with winter's chill, tragedy struck in a way no one could have anticipated. The streets, usually quiet and peaceful, were about to become the center of a story that would shake the community to its core. It was a day that would ignite outrage and heartbreak, not just in Minneapolis, but across the entire nation. News of what happened would ripple far beyond the city limits, sparking protests, conversations, and a demand for justice that echoed from neighborhood gatherings to national headlines. The quiet of a South Minneapolis neighborhood was suddenly shattered by the sound of gunfire. Sirens pierced the cold air as emergency vehicles rushed to the scene, their lights reflecting off the snow and illuminating the faces of stunned residents who gathered outside their homes, trying to make sense of the chaos unfolding on their doorsteps. Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother, was shot and killed by an ICE agent in broad daylight. The violence was sudden, leaving behind a trail of confusion and heartbreak. Renee was more than just a name in the news. She was a daughter, a friend, and a mother whose life was cut short in a moment that would haunt the city. The incident was caught on video, and within hours, the footage spread rapidly across social media and news outlets. The images were shocking, raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. The community was left in shock, grief, and anger as people watched and re-watched the events, searching for answers and struggling to process what they had witnessed. Renee's death wasn't just a headline, it was a devastating loss for her family, her friends, and her neighbors. Her absence left a void that could never be filled. At the memorial, candles flickered in the cold wind, and loved ones gathered to share memories, comfort each other, and mourn the loss of a woman whose life had touched so many. For Minneapolis, this was a tragedy that unfolded on their own streets, deepening old wounds and raising urgent, painful questions about the role of federal law enforcement in local communities. The presence of ICE agents, the use of deadly force, and the lack of clear answers only fueled the sense of injustice and fear. The city is left grappling with pain and demanding answers. How did this happen, and who is responsible? Community meetings grew tense as residents voiced their anger and sorrow, calling for accountability and change. Vigils were held, and the demand for justice grew louder with each passing day. The loss of Renee Nicole Good has become a symbol of the deep tensions between safety, justice, and federal power in America. Her story is now woven into the fabric of Minneapolis, a reminder of the urgent need for answers, for healing, and for a future where tragedies like this never happen again. In the aftermath, two conflicting stories emerged about Renee Nicole Good's final moments. Federal officials claimed ICE agents fired in self-defense after Renee allegedly tried to run them over, labeling the incident as domestic terrorism. This narrative painted agents as victims, justifying deadly force. But in Minneapolis, skepticism grew, especially after video footage surfaced. Mayor Frey, after reviewing the video, bluntly called the federal account bullshit, echoing the outrage of many residents. The city's version, a gross abuse of power, not self-defense. These dueling narratives have left the public searching for truth, fueling anger and distrust. At the heart of it all is a community caught between federal authority and local outrage. Renee's death was the breaking point in a long simmering conflict between Minneapolis and ICE. Mayor Frey had long opposed ICE's aggressive tactics, seeing them as a threat to community trust. After Renee's killing, his frustration turned to fury, publicly demanding ICE get the fuck out of Minneapolis. His words resonated with residents who saw ICE as an occupying force, not protectors. The mayor's stand was unprecedented, transforming a local tragedy into a national flashpoint. For many, it was a validation of their fears and a call to action. Minneapolis drew a line, refusing to be complicit in federal operations it deemed unjust. The city's defiance challenged federal authority and demanded change. Renee's death was not random, it was the result of a deliberate federal strategy. For months, Minnesota had been a testing ground for aggressive ICE enforcement, with more agents and harsher tactics in residential neighborhoods. The goal project strength and boost arrests, but the human cost was ignored. Heavily armed agents, unfamiliar with the community, created a powder keg of tension. Residents felt invaded, and conflict became inevitable. The policy prioritized enforcement over understanding, treating neighborhoods like battlegrounds. The tragic outcome was predictable. A community pushed to the brink, and a life lost. Minneapolis became collateral damage in a federal experiment. Renee Nicole Good paid the ultimate price for a policy that valued force over humanity. Amid the chaos and headlines, it's vital to remember Renee Nicole Good as more than just a name in the news or a fleeting story. She was a real person, with dreams, hopes, and a life that touched so many around her. Her story is not just about tragedy, but about the love and strength she brought to her family and her community. Renee was a 37-year-old mother, neighbor, and friend, someone who was deeply connected to her community in Minneapolis. She was often seen at local parks with her children, sharing laughter and warmth with those around her. Her kindness and generosity left a lasting impression on everyone she met, and she was always willing to lend a helping hand to those in need. Her sudden and tragic death shattered her family, leaving her children without their beloved mother and her loved ones grappling with unimaginable loss. The pain of her absence is felt every day, in every quiet moment and every family gathering where her laughter is missing. For those who truly knew her, Renee was the embodiment of compassion and courage. She stood up for what she believed was right, whether it was supporting a neighbor in need or speaking out at community events. Her voice was one of empathy and conviction, inspiring others to act with kindness and integrity. Whether she was protesting for justice or simply caught in the chaos of the moment, Renee's presence was always an act of solidarity. She believed in the power of community and the importance of standing together, even in the face of adversity. To label her a terrorist is to erase her humanity and the love she gave so freely. To remember her as a mother, a neighbor, and a friend is to honor the truth of who she was, a woman who cared deeply for those around her and worked to make her community a better place. Her loss is deeply personal and profoundly felt, not just a political event or a headline. For her family and friends, the grief is raw and enduring, a reminder of the irreplaceable person they have lost. The city's collective grief is fueled by the memory of Renee, the person, not just the symbol. Her spirit lives on in the stories shared, the tears shed, and the love that continues to surround her memory. Renee's story demands justice, compassion, and remembrance. Her legacy will not be forgotten, and her community will continue to honor her life by seeking truth and standing together in her name. Renee's death is another chapter in Minnesota's painful history of high-profile tragedies. From George Floyd to Philando Castile, Minneapolis has become a symbol of both heartbreak and resistance. Each incident reopens old wounds, fueling distrust and grief. Renee's killing, this time by federal agents, expands the scope of the community's fear and anger. It's no longer just about local police, it's about federal power in their neighborhoods. Many feel progress has been undone, replaced by a new, less accountable threat. The city is left carrying another violent image, another family grieving in public. Minnesota's reputation as a place of conflict and sorrow deepens. Residents never wanted this spotlight, but can't escape it. The most damaging consequence of Renee's shooting is the collapse of trust in Minneapolis neighborhoods. What was once a community built on mutual respect and shared responsibility has been shaken to its core. Residents who once greeted each other with warmth now carry a sense of unease, their daily routines shadowed by uncertainty and fear. Safety is built on trust. Trust that authorities protect, not harm. When that trust is broken, the very foundation of community life begins to crumble. People start to question whether those in uniform are truly there to serve, or if they represent a threat lurking in plain sight. ICE's aggressive tactics have shattered that trust, especially in immigrant and minority communities. For many, the presence of federal agents is a reminder that safety is not guaranteed, and that their very existence can be criminalized at any moment. Fear now replaces security. People hesitate to call for help, worried any contact could bring danger. Even the simple act of dialing 911 is fraught with anxiety, as families weigh the risks of seeking assistance against the possibility of drawing unwanted attention. The federal policy prioritized arrests over relationships, treating residents as obstacles. Instead of fostering cooperation, these actions have deepened divides, making it harder for law enforcement and the community to work together for a safer city. Years of bridge building by local leaders have been undone. The trust that took so long to nurture has been swept away in a matter of moments, leaving leaders and residents alike searching for answers and a path forward. The street where Renee died is now a symbol of vulnerability. It stands as a stark reminder of how quickly tragedy can unravel the fabric of a neighborhood, turning familiar places into sites of mourning and fear. Parents worry, neighbors watch with suspicion, and fear lingers. The sense of community that once brought people together is now overshadowed by doubt and apprehension, as everyone wonders who might be next. The community feels less like home, more like a place under siege. Streets that once echoed with laughter and conversation are now marked by silence, as residents retreat behind closed doors, wary of what the future may hold. Rebuilding trust will be a monumental task, starting only when safety and humanity are restored. It will require honest dialogue, accountability, and a renewed commitment to justice, so that Minneapolis can once again become a place where everyone feels safe and valued. In this volatile moment, calls for calm from city and state leaders have been crucial. Mayor Frey and Governor Walz have had to balance validating anger with urging peaceful action. Governor Walz emphasized the need for a thorough investigation while supporting the grieving city. Their message channeled outrage into constructive action, not more violence. Mayor Frey's fierce criticism of ICE is paired with his responsibility to keep the city safe. He urges residents to fight for justice without bringing more harm. These leaders aren't silencing dissent, they're creating space for real change. Peaceful protest and sustained pressure are the tools for lasting reform. The call is clear. Honor Renee's memory by demanding accountability, not chaos. Renee Nicole Good's death demands more than grief. It demands change. This tragedy exposes the dangerous clash between federal policy and local safety. First, there must be a full, transparent investigation, with video evidence at its core. The people of Minneapolis and Renee's family deserve the truth and accountability. Beyond that, it's time to rethink federal enforcement tactics in our neighborhoods. Are heavily armed agents making us safer, or just sowing fear and division? We need new approaches that prioritize dignity and community well-being. The path forward requires listening, respect, and rebuilding trust. Renee's death was preventable. Let's honor her by demanding better from our leaders. Together we can work for a future where no family endures such a senseless loss.